Hello and welcome to this session of Learn IT Courses Online. We're glad you're able to join us today in our journey to being a junior database administrator. As we said at the core is the data, our table or tables. And then as database administrators, we need to interact using SQL. And of course, we need to design our database using the rules of normalization, security, performance. And all of this is not possible if we don't install the software. So today we're talking about something that's kind of a prerequisite to all of that, and that is installation of the software itself. As database administrators, we're responsible for the installation, the upgrade, and the updates of our SQL Server database and other accompanying software such as the SSMS, which is the SQL Server Management Studio, SSRS, SQL Server Reporting Services, SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services. In addition to that is licensing it as well, because again, there's normally an audit, and even if there wasn't an audit, we want to be responsible database administrators. And as such, one thing that we definitely want to do is make sure that we're only installing the right number of licenses that we have within the company. Also the appropriate licenses. So if we have standard edition, for instance, not to install enterprise, and if we have enterprise, then we want to use that. It doesn't make sense to install something that's less than that, depending, of course, on the business needs. A couple of things that are also important to point out are testing and benchmarking. Testing is very important because sometimes, even though I'm doing a simple upgrade or a simple update or an installation, but it requires me to restart the server. It might require to kick out the users from the server. So those are things that we want to test, or maybe I need to download something first, a prerequisite, before doing that update. So it's very important for me to test it in a test environment that is similar to the production server before doing that, and also to benchmark it, which means I know that the installation or the upgrade is going to take about 30 minutes. So I need to talk to the business and my manager and let them know that we're going to need about 40 minutes of downtime for this update or for this installation, for this upgrade. As database administrators, we definitely want to make sure to visit some and consult with some of the Microsoft websites such as this one here, where we can go in and find information about the different versions of SQL Server databases that we have. For example, in 2017, we have the enterprise version, standard, the developer, web, express, and the different licensing and prices that go along with that. Another link that we're also going to be interested in, or information that we probably going to look at, is where we can go in and download it. And so those, depending on what we have, whether it's Linux or Red Hat or Windows. So those are some of the websites as database administrators that we need to visit before we actually start our installation. We've downloaded the file, mounted it, and now we're just going to go ahead and run to installation on it. Before our actual installation and production environment, in the test environment, this is where we would like to kind of go in and check and have a review of the hardware and software requirements. If we're doing an upgrade, download the upgrade advisor and make sure we're running it. But in our case, we're doing a straightforward installation. So we're just going to click on installation. It's going to give us those options to install SQL Server standalone, and that's what we want, or add features. For those people that haven't done an install since probably SQL Server 2008, R2, or 2012, SSMS, which is the Management Studio, and the data tools, or SSRS and SSIS, were included within the install. But within 2016 and 2017, we need to install that after we're done with the installation. So after we're done with the installation, we need to come back here, download this, and install them each by itself. But for now, we're going to go ahead and click on SQL Server standalone installation. We get our option to download this free edition, this evaluation edition. We're going to click next. And with each layer of our installation, we can kind of see the steps that we need to kind of go through until we kick off our installation. So we're going to go ahead and click next for now. It's running additional checks. We have a warning on the Windows firewall, being that this is not on a server. That's fine. We'll go ahead and click next. This is where we select the products that we'd like to install. For the purposes of what we need, we just excluded the polybase of our services, even though they're very important features. But for this, we've included everything else except for those three. And now we're going to click Next. It's asking if we want to have a named service instance or go with the default. We're going to go with the default instance and click Next. Again, within your server, you might want to have certain features to start or services to start automatically versus others. But for now, we're going to go with the default. Same thing with the account name. We're going to go with the default. For the collation, it depends if you're in a different country or your database uses different languages or you want to allow for a certain kind of collation, then this is where you could customize it. But for now, we're just going to click Next. By default, we want to go with the mixed mode so that we can log in with our Windows authentication, Windows user, but we could also create and use our database server users and administrators such as SA. So we're going to go in here, click on Add Current User, so that adds here by default. And then we want to give our SA their password. Now I'm going to click Next, but again, in the server, what we want to do is we want to look at the area where our directories are going to be, where our data directories are going to be. If you were at a company, again, not everything goes on the C drive. You would have an L drive or an M drive where you could put your database files versus your log files. And then for your default backup directory, so that's stored in the metadata in your database and it goes there by default whenever you create a database. That's where the database folders will go, the log files will go, and your backups will go. So this is where we could set that up if that's what we want to do, and this is the configuration for those. But for the purpose of this installation, we're going to click Next. We'll just add the current user and click Next. Next. We'll add the current user and click Next. Next. That was an example of an error that when I test, I can resolve and make sure that in this case, I had an uninstallation and then another installation. Certain files were not removed, so that was a warning, and that's why I was able to go in and remove it, do a rerun, and it went through. Now it looks like we've been through all the steps, and now we can go ahead and kick off our installation. So we'll go ahead and click Install, and this is the path for our configuration file. So go ahead and click Install. Depending on the speed of our server or PC or laptop, this is going to run anywhere between 15 minutes to about half an hour on average. At the end, it looks like we have a successful installation. So we're going to close this out. And now we're going to go into our SSMS. Click on that. It's going to take us to the option to download the software needed. As we scroll down, we find it. And we can either save it, so 101 megs, or run as is. So we're just going to go ahead and run the installation from there. It's going to take a few minutes to download. Once the download is complete, restart it, click Install, and that kicks off the installation for the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. It looks like our installation is complete for the Management Studio. And as we've said, there's cases where we need to restart to make sure certain things are implemented, and this is why we need to coordinate our installations and our upgrades and our fixes and with management and with the business if we're doing it in a production environment especially. For now, we're going to close so we can go in and deal with the SQL Server data tools, which includes the SSRS and SSIS. We'll scroll down and download the 2017 and run that. Click Next. Installing all those features, SSAS, SSRS, and SSIS, and kick off the installation. With the completion of this step, we've installed SQL Server, our database. We've installed SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio, and finally, the data tools, which includes SSAS, Analytical Services, SSRS, and SSIS. I hope you enjoy this session, and we look forward to meeting you in the next Learn IT Courses online course. Good luck with your Junior DBA course.